Good morning, students. I hope you're all doing well, keeping safe, taking care of your family, and more importantly, using this period of rest for introspection, for delving deep within, working upon your strengths, identifying your weaknesses, devising a plan for the future. I also hope that you're having fun, listening to music, singing, watching new movies, cooking, writing. And if you're with your mom, I hope you're helping her. Girls and boys alike, no gender bias. Make your dad also help with housework. These are very difficult times, life changing times, and consider yourselves fortunate for having been part of a historical moment of a pandemic, which, apart from skewing the population of the world in a tragic manner, will contribute in unimaginable ways to those who survive it. It will teach us to never take anything for granted and to be kinder. I hope you get what I'm saying. Anyway, today's lesson, ironically, is about something to do with your values of life. A short story written by Leo Tolstoy in 1886. And what strikes me always about stories written way beyond our times is the relevance, the universality of emotions and feelings that makes you wonder, oh, this is how it was then too. Now, Leo Tolstoy was born in 1828 and he died in 1910. Very privileged upbringing in the sense that he belonged to a rich aristocratic family, but his concerns were always for the working class, the peasantry, the downtrodden. Social cause was important to Tolstoy, even though he came from an affluent, rich, cultured family. He wrote stories which conveyed a message, a teaching, a thought. The name of the story we're going to do today is How Much Land Does a Man Need? Rather long and drawn out as a title, because it sounds more like a conversational question than a title of a story. Something that you would probably ask a guest, how many spoons of sugar would you like in your coffee? Or maybe, how many rotis would someone like for herself? But in the title is couched the theme of Tolstoy's short story. By quantifying need, he's trying to establish his aim right at the beginning. The implication seems to be ironical, a backhanded means of raking up concealed issues, issues of greed, issues of contentment, issues of jealousy, issues of accumulation, issues of insatiable desire, which leads to doom. Now, the Christian faith, the presence of devil or the Satan hovering nearby to mislead man from the path of righteousness. Tolstoy was a Christian anarchist, which meant that he believed there was only one form of authority over man, and that was of God. It therefore rejects that human governments have ultimate authority over human societies. Now, why is it relevant to talk about it at the onset of the story? Tolstoy refutes the idea of greed, one of the cardinal sins in Christianity. And as the story unfolds, we will realize the intent behind the story. I hope you're all listening in and paying attention. This is not a classroom, but then I expect some semblance of discipline within you. The story begins in humble surroundings, in a conversation between two sisters. One is married to a small-time businessman in the town, and the other is married to a lowly farmer in the countryside. That, of course, gives the town resident sister the right to wax eloquent or talk with so much pride, gushingly, about her oh so interesting life in the town. The sophistication, their choice of entertainment in town, the theatre, the lovely avenues for walks, the variety of food available, the fashionable clothes that they get to wear. She ridicules, she makes fun of the life of her sister which she calls is a dung heap. A dung heap, is a huge pile of shit. And she makes them equal to the worms and insects which feed off shit or excrement. This piques the other sister. You know what is the meaning of pique? Pique. Pique is hurt ego, hurt pride. This piques the other sister, the one who was married to a farmer, and she immediately goes into a defense mode, and she starts talking about how they in the countryside live a much more contented and simple life. Her pique, which is again another word for hurt pride, makes her speak rather disparagingly in an effort to belittle her sister, that town people might have all the fun, more money maybe, entertainment, etc., but they lacked security. What they have today might go off tomorrow in a puff. She used the proverb, loss and gain are brothers twain. Whereas in the village, there is a certainty about existence. She says that a farmer might earn less than a tradesman in town, but he's safe from the evil one. The possibility of becoming victim to the temptations of modern existence, to wine, women, gambling, the possibility, of course, is much more in a town. So basically, she's trying to convey that, look, I might be poorer than you, but I am probably in a more stable situation than you. Your husband might run away with another woman tomorrow, who knows? Overhearing the conversation was Pahom, the peasant husband. This was not a happy conversation for him to overhear. He thought of himself with some self-deprecation or some self-disgust. At that point of time, he seemed to condemn his life as a peasant. He felt that it was true. No matter how hard he worked, tilling the soil, plowing, sowing, he would continue to remain in the bottom rungs of society, the lowest rungs. And it did not surprise him that his sister-in-law called him an insect living on a dung heap. He would never have enough. The silly conversation between two women, his wife and her sister, seemed to spark the dissatisfaction lying dormant in him. He concluded that the fact that he did not possess enough land was the curse of his life. He said to himself that if he had enough land, he probably wouldn't even fear the devil, the Satan, or as we would say in India, the shaitan. Now the devil is always hovering in the vicinity of man, close by, hanging around. Watch out, the devil might be near you right now. And the devil is always waiting for an opportunity, a weak moment, so that he can follow the path of the devil when man errs, when man makes a mistake. And the path of the devil is always at, exactly opposite to the path of God. Pahom committed the first sin, that of pride, overconfidence, when he said, I wouldn't probably fear the devil if I had lots of land. So the devil decides to take up this challenge. He would offer him lots and lots of land and wait for him to go down the hill of ruin. He said to himself that if he decided that he would give Pahom enough land and use him as a pawn in the forever match between God and the devil. Now Pahom belonged to a commune or a cooperative of farmers who worked on a plot of land and shared the crop equally. It was a modest existence. They had not known anything better, so they were okay with their way of life. Near their village there was a lady, landowner, who owned about 300 acres of land. Now this lady suddenly decides to appoint a manager to look after her estate. This manager becomes a little too enthusiastic about his job and starts being unfair to all the farmers around her estate. What does he do? He starts with fining them. Why does he fine them? Because these farmers own cattle, horses, etc., and they need to feed somewhere. Now, apart from feeding on free land which is not owned by anyone, they also sometimes trespass into fields of oats belonging to other people. And this lady's land was probably one of those. However much Pahom tried, he was constantly being fined for these trespasses of his animals, and he was very relieved when he had to harness the animals for winter, even though it cost him more to provide for their fodder. Now, soon they heard that the lady was going to sell off her land to the same manager, and these peasants were really alarmed. If, as an estate manager, he had unleashed so much trauma upon the farmers, imagine what he would do to them once he became owner of the property. So, the commune went as a united body of farmers to dissuade her from selling her land to the manager, and they offered to buy it from her. She agreed to the proposition, but we all know about the devil who was out to, ruin Pahom because of the challenge. The devil, who was already at work trying to bring Pahom to his ruin, did not allow all the members of the commune to come to an agreement. So they decided to buy plots of the land individually. Pahom heard about how a neighbor had got himself 50 acres of land from the lady on 50% payment, and the rest after a year. So he too got tempted to do the same. But he just had about 100 rubles. For your information, 1 ruble is about 95 paise as in today's rate. Ruble is the Russian currency. He had just about 100 rubles as savings. So he decided to borrow some from his brother-in-law. He sold a young male horse. He pledged a son's services in return for a year's wages. Now, it is important to note here the extent to which Pahom was stretching his means in order to possess, to acquire, to accumulate. The title of the story is very symbolic, as I mentioned right in the beginning. It mentions need and much. How much land does a man need? Quantifying need in numbers is an impossible task. Need is subjective, uncountable. Without bringing religion into it, we can safely say that want and need can be controlled with a view to the larger aspects of life. You don't have to own everything that you desire. So Pahom is soon settled with 40 acres of land, growing lush fields of corn, making his own hay, cutting his own trees, and bursting with pride when he looks at his field. But that is not the end of the story. Now that he has more land, he has to tolerate trespasses. Trespasses are the unlawful entry into other people's homes, land, etc. of the neighbors. Now these neighbors allow their livestock, their cattle, their horses to wander into his field to graze. He tolerates a few times, empathizing with their helplessness. Because after all, he seems to identify with them for a little while because he also used to be landless at one time. But when borders are transgressed too often and his pride was still on an uphill ride, he was becoming prouder and prouder of himself. And of course, it becomes more difficult to tolerate the trespasses. So he complained to the district courts, which punished the trespassers, and he made himself some enemies. This set Pahom on another track. He got into frequent squabbles with the commune, with the elders, the leaders or seniors in a group of village, who wouldn't punish Pahom's perpetrators, his enemies, for lack of evidence. Now, how would they punish those people whose animals had wandered into the fields of Pahom when there was no proof? In those times, there were no, these cameras, these hidden cameras which reveal crimes in today's times. So it was very difficult to identify who actually had wandered into his field. So Pahom was very unhappy. He wanted to move away from this place. During this time, he was visited by a traveler from the regions beyond the river Volga, which promised rich, fertile lands and had become an attraction for many to travel and settle there. Led by his insatiable, I hope you understand the meaning of insatiable, something which cannot be satisfied. Led by his insatiable desire for more and more, he decided to move there. His sons and he got about 125 acres of land there, about 3 times more than what he had in his previous home. Well, that should have been it, and he should have sought no more. But what to do about the devil who was continuously egging him on, tempting him with more, drawing him more towards conflict, towards the need to have more power and strength, drawing him towards owning more, acquiring more. He had a good wheat crop and he wanted to grow more, but his lands never seemed to be enough for the amount he wanted to grow. So that led to dissatisfaction again. This went on for some time, during which he rented other people's land to grow more wheat. He even toyed with the idea of buying a huge farm where all his land would be in one place and life would become easier without transportation of wheat, etc. Now, while he was undergoing this period of uncertainty, wondering what to do, how else would he be able to satisfy his need for more land, around this time he was again visited by a traveling dealer. Now, it was very common in those times for travelers, visitors who are passing through a certain village to be offered hospitality for a night or two, to be offered a drink, to be offered some food, to be offered water for their animals. So this traveling dealer who informed him about the land of the Bashkars, where he could buy lots of land by giving free gifts to the chiefs. This was a story, remember? There was yet another person in the past who came from beyond the river Volga, who told him about a similar piece of area where there was lots of land available for very cheap prices. This was another dealer who's come to tell him about the land of the Bashkars. The land was cheap, lots of it was available, and being free, being near to the river, the soil was rich, virgin, and very fertile. Pahom, who was on the verge of making a deal for 13,000 acres of land, thought better of it and decided to move to the land of the Bashkars, where the chiefs were, it seems, as simple as sheep and could give one as much land as one desired in exchange for some nice gifts. So Pahom, armed with gifts like tea, wine, and other gifts, reached the land of the Bashkars with his manservant. The Bashkars were a cool lot, never did any hard work, only drank kamis, which was something it was a fermented mare milk. Fermented, so that means it probably had some amount of intoxication in it. So all they did was drank kamis, lots of tea, ate mutton, and played their pipes. They were happy to receive Pahom and thrilled with the gifts. Now their chief was a man who wore a large fur cap and who said Pahom could buy all the land he wanted at the rate of 1,000 rubles a day. Now that was a little surprising because he didn't understand what was meant by all the land for 1,000 rubles a day. Now they explained to him that Pahom would set out on foot early in the morning at sunrise, and whatever area of land he covered by the time of sunset would be his. And for each day that he covers, it would cost him about 1,000 rubles. The condition was he had to reach the spot he started by sunset, or he had to forego everything. Now Pahom was delighted. The task seemed too easy for him. Strangely, he noticed that the Bashkars seemed very amused amongst themselves and kept chatting and laughing in an Indian language. Pahom, of course, laid down that he wanted the land made out to him in legal documents. He said that, no, look, I'm not making it's not a joke. If you just tell me that this is the land that you walk across and that's yours, that's not going to satisfy me. I need the documents drawn out in proper legal manner. So, because who knows about life and death? Tomorrow your children might disinherit my children of the land that I have earned. So he was assured that don't worry, we'll have it all drawn up, everything will be legal and correct. You don't have to worry about that. It was decided that he would start the next morning, early next morning, and after much revelry over kamis and more mutton, they retired for the night. He was given a feather bed to sleep on, but surprisingly he could hardly sleep that night. He was full of plans about how large a tract of land he would cover the next day. Plans like the milkmaid who counted her chicks before they were hatched. Don't count your chickens before they are hatched. How many of you have heard this? That means Don't go too far in dreaming. Daydreaming is not good. When he finally dozed off, he dreamt that he heard someone chuckling outside. Chuckling is a smothered laughter, one which is meant as a quiet, when you're quietly laughing to yourself. You are cutting a joke to yourself and laughing about it. That's called chuckling. When he went outside to check who it was, he found it was the chief in the fur cap. Soon the chief's face changed to that of the dealer who had informed him about the land of the Bashkars. Then again to that of the peasant who had come from beyond the Volga. And soon the face was that of the devil himself with horns and hooves, having a good laugh. Shaking it off as a strange dream, he started getting ready to start his walk across the steppes, the grasslands, to measure his land. Now we reach the conclusion of the story here. Pahom, in his greed for more and more land, overestimated his ability to walk across 35 miles, always getting waylaid during his journey by soil that looked rich and black as poppy seeds. Oh, that looks so good. I'm sure I can grow some corn here. It looks so fertile, it looks so black, it's as black as poppy seeds. Always getting waylaid, seeing a damp hollow piece which he felt would be great for growing flax. So in the process he covered too much ground, which was difficult to retrace to reach in time the hillock which was his starting point, and where he could see the chief holding his sides and laughing as he had seen in the dream. He ran and ran and ran, tired. His heart was beating like a blacksmith's bellows. The blacksmith's bellows is a device with an airbag which, when squeezed with two handles, releases air into the fire to keep it going. It's used at the blacksmiths. He managed to reach the cap on which was placed his 1,000 rubles, and the last he heard was the chief's words. Now that's a fine fellow, he has gained so much land. The irony of the end is, no matter how much land you might possess, at the end of your life, you only need that space in the earth which will accommodate your body. The moral of the story is, be satisfied with what you have. Material possessions are not a symbol of your success. Acquire as much as you can make use of, enjoy, share, and be happy about. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King were deeply influenced by Tolstoy because of his anarcho-pacifism ideology, which meant that God was above the state and violence was rejected for social change. In this story, Tolstoy's emphasis has been of the Christian cardinal sins which are man's undoing, and they bring about his ruin. In this case, it was pride and greed of Pahom. Thank you so much. I hope it was interesting, long story. I think if I had been teaching in class, this would have probably taken me about 3 days or 4 days to finish. We have the advantage of online teaching, so I hope you understand and you get back to me. Any word, anything, any question, please revert back. Thank you so much.